Do you think Alfian slash Fikri partnership should be a permanent, despite their quite successful results so far? I find it a bit frustrating knowing the shuttle is very hard to kill from the backcourt. I personally still prefer a hard-hitting player in backcourt like Daniel Martin. Now, first thing about Daniel Martin, obviously he is trying to come back from knee injury. We're not quite sure how long it's going to take. But I've always said when it comes to him, I think he should be a mixed player. Maybe the ACL injury might put an end to that because his ability to obviously mix, you have to be able to cover the backcourt probably a bit better than he can, and with a knee injury on top of that, that's not going to be too easy. But I always felt the way that he moved and played, and just his build, I think he could have been like he's like a Praveen Tantawi blend. Like he's got like a little bit more power than Tantawi, maybe not quite as much finesse and touch, but he's got more of those kind of Tantawi shots than say Praveen did. I think he could have actually been a mixed player, a really good one for Indonesia. But whether we'll see that, I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure he'll probably stick doubles. Although, who's he going to partner when he comes back? That would be quite interesting. I think there isn't. I'm trying to think of a partner that's out there that he could have because you've got Ardianto and Ramat. I know that's only playing one tournament, but they're playing together and they did pretty well. Obviously, Alfian and Fikri, I do think are going to stick. Rinov Rivaldi and Rambitan are partnering because they both left the national centre. You've got Carnando and Maulana are a pair. So who you really left for Daniel Martin? It'll be interesting to see what he does. Maybe if he is, they might try him in the mixed doubles. Who knows? But anyway, I've kind of sidetracked on the question there. For me, yes, I do think they should be permanent because, in all honesty, what are the other choices? There aren't any. Daniel Martin, maybe you could say you could try in, but we've seen those. And I think the way Alfian and Fikri are playing, for me, yes, power is a weakness, but I wouldn't say they're completely devoid of power. And they do play with a lot of variation. And they're very, very quick around each other. They rotate really well. And yes, of course, there's going to be some pairs that might be able to, a bit like we saw with the Minions when they came up against Watanabe and Endo, where they could just do the defensive game. And that might be a potential weakness for them. But I think they're both good enough, and they've got enough power where they could figure things out and kind of come up with their own solution. So yeah, whilst on one hand you could say this is the clear tactic to beat Alfian and Fikri, although that wasn't the tactic that I think Hoki and Kobayashi used, but it could be a tactic that in, say, bigger, more expansive arenas we might see. But then you've got to remember that Alfian and Fikri are good enough to go, well, let's counter that with this. So just because there is an easy counter to that, I'm sure they'll be figuring out a way to kind of counter that back if that situation arises. And another thing, I think they seem to be enjoying playing together. They have a good rapport, which for me is the thing that brings the best results in doubles. We always talk about pairs like, we talk about Hendra Setiawan and Mohamed Hassan. One of their biggest strengths was that they got on so well. They had a great relationship. They understood their roles. They got on well off court. They never really argued with each other. The rapport was there. And look at the results those two had. And clearly, I think Alfian and Fikri get along well and they're enjoying. And the first, I can't remember how many tournaments they've played now, 4 or 5? And their worst result was their first tournament, which was a quarter-final. They've reached semi-finals at least of every tournament they've played, and majority of the time they've been in the final. So I think with the great results, the fact that Indonesia haven't really got anyone else, and yeah, who would be the other options? They're doing well, consistently well. Yes, of course, there's going to be counters to the way they play, but you would say that about absolutely every pair. So, right, moving on. So yeah, I do think they should be a permanent pair if that wasn't already obvious.